But right now we are on for your Saturday special with Mr. Michael Zwerling.
Alex.
Yes,
Alex
indeed.
Schaefer, how are you?
I'm doing very well. This is exciting.
It is, because it's the first time you and I have ever worked together on the air.
I know. It's a terrifying rite of passage, it feels like. It's good.
Well, you're going to be just great. I don't know if I'll be, because you get so much more practice being the anchor with Rosie on Good Morning Monterey Bay Monday through Friday, huh?
I do get the practice, but you're the consummate professional. Been doing this for much longer.
No one's ever called me that in my life. I don't know how to take that. I really don't. But you know, when I don't know what to do, here's what I do.
Good morning. A brighter day is here. Good morning. May we bring you cheer.
We've got time, we've got tunes, we've got time, tunes, and temperature.
Get up and go, it's today, you know, on KSCO Radio.
God, that knocked me off track. I mean, no one's ever called me a professional in my whole life. Well, welcome, everybody, in Radio Land to the Saturday special on your favorite radio station, AM 1080 KSCO. My name is MZ, and we'll be on the air right up until 12 noon with, I think, a particularly interesting Saturday special. Hopefully it won't bomb, but stay with us. We'll find out.
Good morning. Now stay right here on KSCO Radio.
Okay. Alex Schaefer, are you there?
I am indeed.
May I ask you a personal question? I always ask Griffin Queener a personal question at the beginning of each Saturday special.
I've been waiting for this. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Does Google run your life?
Without me knowing it, almost certainly, yes.
Now, why do you say that? Because you use Gmail for your email?
I use Gmail. I tend to use Google. I've tried to switch to DuckDuckGo for my search engineering, but the algorithm is the be-all, end-all. Yeah, it dictates almost everything.
I see. Okay, we have a special guest today who has blown the whistle on Google. He has blown the whistle. He's a former Google employee. Yeah. Hey, Zach. Hey, this is horrible. You need to help me with the pronunciation of your name, and I think I'll remember it after that.
Vorhies, the jolly good fellow. So it's the same thing, Vorhies.
Vorhies. Okay, good. So I think it's a little distorted. So Alex Schaefer, if you can pot Zach down a tiny little bit, I think it'll be just perfect. Okay, Zach is in Washington, D.C., doing things that are probably none of our business, but I'll ask him, Zach, why are you there?
It's none of your business.
Okay. All right.
No, I'm kidding. I wish I could tell you, but I'm in a cone of silence. And I can't talk about what I'm doing in Washington, D.C., but there's going to be some news that's going to be coming out here in a little bit. So the audience needs to stay tuned because it's going to be big.
Okay, so let's back up to. Are you like a software engineer? I mean, you were a Google employee of significant enough status that you were given access to internal documents that they only save for internal people at Google, yes?
Right. So the thing is that Google has a document system which is open to any full-time employee. Obviously, there's different tiers above that, but I didn't really have any special access to the company other than being a full-time employee.
Okay. For how long and how and when were you hired? Let's go back a little. Let's get a little bit of a biography on you, okay?
Okay, so I got hired in 2008 as a software engineer. working for the Google Earth project. I helped take Google Earth, put it on the Audi navigation system, and I did that for 5.5 years. I left for 3 years to do my own business. I came back in 2016, and they let me come back without an interview and just told me, what do you want? And so I said, I want to work at YouTube, which Google fully owns. And so I worked in Google at YouTube as a senior software engineer, and I was at that position for 3.5 years. For 3 years.
Okay. Then
and
what?
So,
until when, would you say? When that 3 years?
So August 2016 to June 2019.
Okay. All right. So 3 months ago, and that's when things changed, huh?
Right. Well, when I first came there, everything was pretty normal, right? It was still the same old company that I loved. The food was still free. They still had massages, all that nice stuff. I was in heaven. Despite the fact that I was working all the time, it was a good deal. But then something happened. Donald Trump won the 2016 election, and then everything changed.
Wow.
And the way that it changed is, go ahead.
Let me. This is a perfect time for the first question that I've been meaning to ask you, and I've already asked you several others. But here's the question. The first question I'd always planned to ask you: are you a Trump supporter?
I wasn't in 2016. I didn't vote. I was pretty much disenfranchised with the system. In fact, I would have considered myself a liberal. I went to Obama's inauguration in 2008 in Washington, D.C.
Really?
But then
wow. So you must have voted for him back then, yeah?
Yeah, but the thing was I saw all the countries that were flipped, and all the people that died from military interventionism. I'm talking about Libya, talking about the running of weapons to Syria, and the creation of ISIS. And I started to become very disillusioned by the whole political system, starting to realize that it was a rigged system. And I saw Hillary, and I absolutely hated her. And Trump seemed to be an actor. I didn't really take him seriously. And I didn't think that he was going to win. I thought that he was a fake candidate put on the right to pave a way for Hillary Clinton to win. But then towards the last month, I just saw the media go absolutely insane against Donald Trump. And I started to realize that there was something going on. And then my friend said that Trump was representing an existential threat to the entire system. And I didn't really, it made some sense to me, but I kind of was apathetic. Okay, whatever. Because
Zach, was the friend you're speaking of? Was the friend you're speaking of another software co-employee or another co-employee at Google with you?
No, he was just a really woke musician.
Uh-huh.
And he had this theory that the entire media system was being controlled by a cabal. And I was like, what? That sounds ridiculous. The whole system, I was like, whatever, dude. But that was like sort of like telling me the magician's trick. Like once they told me that, then it started, like the whole world started to make a lot more sense. And I started realizing that the entire media establishment was essentially an unlicensed lobbying firm that was advocating for one political candidate.
Wow. That must have been a sobering realization, right?
Yeah, it was. And when Donald Trump won, let me tell you, Google was not happy. The employees themselves seemed devastated. I woke up the next day after the election, and I just started laughing. I was like, I can't believe he actually won. Well, this is going to be a really interesting 4 years. But what I didn't realize was that the entire establishment was going to turn around and fight him, and that they were going to recruit Google into that fight, and that Google would end up sacrificing all of its mission statements, including don't be evil and organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful, in order to fight this duly elected president of the United States.
Wow. Then what?
So what happened was immediately after Trump got elected, the entire company of Google got together in an all-hands meeting with the executive team. Every week we have a meeting that happens in Mountain View with the executives getting on stage and kind of a fireside chat where they talk about new stuff that's happening with the company to the employees. Well, this one was really special because they had a lot of the executive team there. And it turned out to be a circus. They were so emotional that it just was a complete head scratcher for me. You know, the founder, Sergey Brin, said that he was personally offended by the Trump election. You had the CFO breaking down in tears. And most importantly, you had the CEO, Sundar Pichai, stating that because of all the fake news and racism, but particularly the fake news, that Google had a responsibility to use its AI expertise, its machine learning algorithms, in order to sort of change. What was the words that he used? To sort of like make a difference and change and help suppress some of that fake news. I'm paraphrasing here, and so.
And what he says is fake news is anything that is pro-Trump, which there isn't much in the media. I'm trying to figure that out.
That was the thing. What's the question? Like, who defines what fake news is? It's a really difficult, problem. And so I started digging around, and what I found was this PowerPoint presentation that was available talking about what fake news was. And let me tell you, as I started going through this PowerPoint presentation, I came to a startling realization. The examples that they were using were actual events that had taken place. I'll give you an example. Hillary running weapons in order to arm ISIS terrorists. And I was like, no, that actually happened. That's not fake news. And then I realized, oh, my God, they're not trying to suppress the fake news. They're trying to suppress the actual news.
Yeah, the actual news. Wow. Okay, so this was a PowerPoint presentation that you had access to as a regular employee.
Yeah.
Is that right? Because that's where you found it in the file, right? That's available only to regular employees.
Yep. And this was done in Q4 2016. So right after the election, they got right to work, did not skip a beat, creating the designs and the machinations for suppressing the information landscape. Okay. So that's when I realized that, I needed to start archiving some of this stuff because I had become aware of things like Useful Idiots and Yuri Bezmenov's speech about how ideological subversion works and how organizations are infiltrated. So what I realized is that, wow, these people don't even have any clue that they're trying to suppress actual information, and that eventually this stuff is going to leak out. Because if I've got access to it, then 100 other thousand employees also have access to it. So I just started downloading it. And as I started, reading these PowerPoint presentations, I would find keywords, and then I would go to these other internal websites, and I would see, more stuff, and I was like, oh, my God. And I would start downloading this, and I started creating this search ring of keywords, and I started expanding it out and capturing the system. And what emerged was a picture of their coming censorship regime. And that censorship regime is called machine learning fairness, okay? And which is the appropriate name that a totalitarian would give a censorship regime. They wouldn't call it, oh, this is our machine learning censorship. They would call it fairness, right? Mm-hmm. And so, to figure out what it is, you got to apply, the law of inverse and realize that it's machine learning unfairness. And what this machine learning fairness doctrine had was the definition of what algorithmic unfairness was. And what they said is that, let's say as an example, you were searching for the term CEO, and if Google gave back results that mostly featured men, and even if that result reflected actual reality, it could still be considered algorithmically unfair and justify corrective action via product intervention. So what they're making a declaration of is that objective reality is inherently unfair, and what they're going to do is they're going to reshape, they're going to resculpt society according to their whims. Now, how are they going to do this? And they actually laid this out in a 4-step process. And the process was content is generated. It is then filtered and aggregated. It is then given out to people like us, and then people like us are programmed, and then this cycle repeats.
What's people like us? What's people like us? Just the general public? Is that what you mean? People like us?
The general public.
Okay.
So the interpretation of this is that as they filter this content, then we will change our culture based on this filtering technique, and then we'll generate different content, and then they'll just keep on, applying their quote unquote fairness censorship, and then they'll nudge us slowly into the direction that they want us to go in. And so that's when I realized, wow, the leadership actually thinks of us as programmable units. So stuff like this is, like I said, I started, downloading all this stuff. But at the time in 2017, I hadn't yet, I wasn't determined to give it to the public. I wasn't going to do any disclosure. That all changed when I caught Google deleting words out of their translation dictionary in order to make a Trump tweet sound crazy.
Make what sound crazy?
I caught Google deleting words out of their translation dictionary to make a Trump tweet sound crazy.
A Trump? Okay. All right.
Okay. So let's back up.
Yeah.
Trump goes to Saudi Arabia May 2017. Okay. He comes back and he makes the following tweet. Despite the negative constant press, kafefe. What does kafefe mean? Well, according to translate.google.com, it translates from Arabic to English to we will stand up. So putting that together, it says, despite the negative constant press, we will stand up. So Trump deleted that tweet 6 hours later and then put another tweet out saying, can anyone figure out what kafefe means? Good luck. Well, the internet responded by saying, we figured it out. Well, the New York Times, unhappy about this decode, created a hit piece. I believe it was around May 31st, 2017, in which they said, actually, this is a nonsense word. And all these people, saying that this translates into something, they're all wrong. And we know this because we found some academic in an ivory tower who's going to tell us that everyone's wrong and that it's not a word and that this is nonsense, right? A Google executive took that New York Times article and created a design document to replace the word kafefe from its English translation into an icon of someone shrugging their shoulders. But they never put the shrugging shoulder. They just deleted the word out of the translation dictionary. And what's more telling about their intentions is that the censorship team at Google who did this deletion called themselves the Derrida team. Why is Derrida significant? Because, if you'll believe it, the French philosopher who advocated for the destruction of Western civilization through the use of language was named Jacques Derrida. So here we are. We've got the Derrida team at Google deleting words out of their translation dictionary to make a Trump tweet sound crazy. What was the ramification of that? You had the establishment media a week later trying to evoke the 25th Amendment in order to say that Trump was mentally incapacitated because he was pushing out nonsense in order to remove him from the presidency.
Yeah, I remember that.
That's when I realized that what Google was engaging in was more than petty censorship. It was actually an act of sedition. And that at that point, I had no choice but to disclose this to the American public, disclose this to law enforcement, and blow the whistle so that this could be brought into the light. And so at that point, I gathered the 950 pages of documents from Google, and I sat out to try to find a media organization in order to bring this to the public.
Was that
And
Project Veritas?
Yeah, so the media organization that I was told to bring it to was Project Veritas, because this needed a human element, and it needed not just a document dump. It also needed, an undercover investigation, a sting operation on one of their executives, in order to get them to admit the things that they, that were being said in these design documents, but they were denying in public.
Okay,
so
tell us a little bit about Project Veritas, to pronounce it correctly, presumably the way you did. This is the first I've ever heard of them. Is that an online organization of, I don't know, to use a better word, investigative journalists?
Yeah, it's one of the last investigative journalists in America. It's funded completely by donations. And the person that founded the organization is a guy by the name of James O'Keefe. And he was trained, and his group is trained in undercover techniques on how to engage in stealth operations so they can get people to say things in a public area and then record them and then disclose that to the public. And so they've been instrumental in taking down organizations like Acorn, which was a fundraising organization. In fact, Acorn was how they got their start, because what James did is he went through these outreach programs pretending to be a prostitute and having a girl that looked like she was underage, and then he came in and said, hey, I want to get tax advice on how to hide the income from my underage 15-year-old prostitute. And 3 out of the 4 offices, knowing that he was engaging in illegal underage prostitution, actually gave him tax advice. And then he was able to disclose this to the media, and as a result, Acorn got shut down across the nation by getting cut off to its funding from the government.
Wow, yeah, Acorn was something that we used to, my mother, who has since moved to heaven, used to do editorials here on KSCO talking, disclosing about what Acorn is all about. And come to think of it, I haven't really heard about that organization for quite some time now, and I wasn't aware that what you're telling me was the case, but it all makes sense now.
Yeah,
that we haven't heard.
James O'Keefe ended it. They're close.
And where is O'Keefe? Where is his organization based?
He's based in New York.
Okay. All right. Okay, continue the story.
Yeah.
Please.
So I reach out to Project Veritas. They send me an undercover agent, a handler, if you may. The handler comes out, and I kind of brief him on what's going on. He knows about Marxism and the communists and how they infiltrate, so he's totally up to spec with their tactics. He totally gets it, but I inform him of how it works in the technical age. And so after earning my trust, I give him the full disclosure, and he sends it back to headquarters. And then they end up sitting on it for 1.5 years. And I was actually kind of upset about this because, I wanted this disclosed to the American public, but I realized that each day that this wasn't disclosed meant that disclosure was getting riper and riper and getting more valuable and more valuable. So I pretty much just, hung out, did my job. I think I sent them like another document dump as new things kind of came in. And then
because you had already gone public anonymously, right? But so you still had access to the Google employee, full-time employee, files. Is that right?
I hadn't come out I hadn't done any disclosure. None of the stuff that I sent was disclosed until the first time in June of 2019. So up until that point.
Wow, that's very recent. Yeah, within the last 3 months. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I'm waiting. Right, nothing's happening. I'm going to these internal events YouTube, and they're getting more and more forward in what they're attempting to do. I remember that there was a stream event, which was an all employees that worked at YouTube event, and Susan Wachowski, the CEO of YouTube, she came out and said, you know, we're making some changes. We're now going to boost authoritative content. We're going to push down the fake and trashy news. And I was like, yeah, I know what this is going to be. And so I was kind of being traumatized by all this because I was inside the belly of the beast, knowing what they were doing and realizing that nobody else had any clue, that they still thought of Google as, you know, an objective source of information instead of a highly political biased machine. And so it wasn't until several waves of censorship hit the company and my frustration that Project Veritas hadn't released any of these docs that I decided that I could no longer participate in the system. And I wrote I disclosed to my manager that I was resigning. And on the day that I was writing my resignation letter to the company, I got a call from Project Veritas. And what they said is that they said, Zach, we took your information. We did a sting operation on the AI trust and safety executive by the name of Jen Janai. Thank you. This is our transcript. What do you think? And I read this transcript, and it was, she came out, and maybe she had had a few drinks, I'm not entirely sure, but she said everything that I had been warning them about. And what Project Veritas...
So they hadn't been in contact with you because they were Project Veritas was checking out your Veritas, it sounds like, right?
That's right. And you know what? James O'Keefe later came to me and said that the documents that I'd sent were so outrageous that they suspected that I was a disinfo agent. And so they had hesitation on pushing this forward because they had got egg on their face. They got caught trying to infiltrate Washington Post. So he was worried that this was another operation to discredit him with a fake document. It wasn't until they did a few targeted operations on some lower level employees. They found out that the things that I was said about machine learning fairness were actually true, and that's when they decided to do a full operation on one of the executives.
Were they giving you the cold shoulder when you were frustratingly waiting for them to do something and they didn't do anything? Did they not return your phone calls for that period or something like that?
You know what? I'm really not that aggressive when I go after people. I'm just saying of well, this is gold. I just dropped you guys the golden egg. I'm not going to if you guys want to do this, I'm not going to try to push it. So
right.
I was just actually waiting for them to do something with it, and they just didn't do it.
Okay.
And I think I followed up one time, and I didn't get a response. So I was like, well, screw that. I guess I could be more proactive in my life, but that's just not who I am. So in that regard. So anyways, they did this sting operation. They got Jen Janai to admit that only the company the size of Google could stop the next Trump situation in 2020. Right?
Mm-hmm.
This was a bombshell admission. And so they asked me what I thought of it over the phone. I told them what I thought, and they said that was such a riveting speech. Why don't you come to New York and say that on camera? And so I said, well, what a coincidence. I'm writing my resignation letter. I would love to come to New York and disclose this undercover, so, be anonymous. And so then they agreed. I wrote the best resignation and only resignation letter I've ever written. It was such a relief. And immediately upon submitting my resignation letter, the Global Network Security Office messaged me and said, you're under investigation. We tried to come talk to you, but you weren't at location because I was working from home that day. And we want to talk to you about some of the documents that you saw. I was like, uh-oh, they know what I saw. Now they know that I know what they know. And so I declined. I told them, look, I'm resigning. I'm not going to work in any more clown show about this. I'm done.
So they didn't, at that point, they didn't know that you were resigning. It was you who told them that in a coincidental time, right?
Right. I told them that I was resigning, and then immediately they put me under investigation because my manager had told them that I was resigning because I was disgruntled with the morality and ethics of the company.
Uh-huh.
And so then they're like, oh, maybe this guy is going to be another Kevin Cernicki who submitted a 2,000-page document to the National Labor Board about Google's abuses. So they didn't want to have another event like that. So they put me under investigation. And by the way, that Kevin Cernicki has not made the public. It's still under court order seal. So we don't know what's there. All we know is like 2,000 pages. So they're trying to keep this under wraps that this is going to be another.
How come they were able to with him and not with you so far?
Because Kevin Cernicki didn't apply the right tactics. He had faith in the system, which I don't. And so what he thought is that he could just go to a government agency in California and submit a complaint and a dossier of information proving Google's systemic bias against conservative attitudes, and that the system would work out in his favor. What he realized now is that the entire system is bought out, has been captured by Google, and is now acting in their favor. And as a result, Google ambushed him in HR, grabbed his laptop, went through it, and then came up with a legal theory that Kevin Cernicki actually didn't get the documents legitimately as a full-time employee, but actually hacked their system in order to discover the legal strategy to give to their competitors. He was put under criminal investigation, and he spent $100,000 of his own money in order to try to stay out of jail, in order to defend himself against Google, just because he did the right thing and worked through the system. I realized that it was that Google's words that they wouldn't engage in such reckless behavior was a deception, that they would, and that this was a very deceptive organization. They were very malicious, and so my strategy was always a double strategy of notify the media at the same time that I'm pushing through this on the law enforcement side. Because ultimately, this is something that needs to go through the FBI, needs to go through the DOJ. This isn't something that is a National Labor Board, issue. It's much, much, much larger than that. Mm-hmm. And so Kevin Cernicki got whacked. I mean, not killed, but he got put under the hammer. And we hope that with the recent moves that Trump is making, that those 2,000 pages will come to light. But back to me. Okay, so I fly to New York, okay? I tell Google to buzz off. They deactivate my key card. They deactivate my laptop. They say that my resignation is effective immediately, and they ask me, please don't, please sign an NDA. Now, I don't want to sign an NDA because, I signed my original NDA under employment on good faith that Google was going to do the right thing, and that they were going to organize the world's information, make it universally accessible and useful, i.e., not censor it.
Instead of manipulate it. Yeah.
So I signed the NDA in good faith based on their contract. They broke their contract. And one, my contract is no longer valid because of that. And two, I can break my NDA if I'm blowing the whistle on their illegal activity, which sedition is. So I'm double covered right now under breaking my NDA. Their NDA, they wanted me to sign a new NDA, and there's no way that I'm going to do that because this is a criminal conspiracy. So I ignore them.
They must think you fell off a watermelon truck or something, huh?
I don't know what they thought. Their calculus is now screwed. They're in a really bad position. I'm in New York. I disclosed 2 pages to the public through Project Veritas. I go under, I do the anonymous thing with the shadow over my face and my voice changed. And we disclose it, and it's a media sensation. My hope is that Google is going to leave me alone and not pursue this because they know what I saw and they know what I can do. And I'm like, I'm done with this. I've done my piece. I'm going to go back into the workforce. I'm going to go and make the next best thing. But Google decided that they were not done with me. And what they started to do was they started to engage in legal warfare called lawfare. And what they had is they had their legal firm start the process of dragging me through court. It started with a letter saying whether I retained any of their information and for me to list who I gave this information to and demanding that they get access to my laptop and my backup data and that they rifle through it and delete whatever it is that's theirs. Well, I know exactly what they're doing. They're looking to delete evidence of criminal activity. And so I think about it and I realize, no, well, their laptop is part of the chain of custody of this evidence. And really, it needs to, along with all the other documents, it needs to go into the hands of the DOJ. So I physically print out all 950 pages of documents, take the laptop, put it into a box, I send it to the DOJ Antitrust Division, and then I respond to Google with a letter saying, I've sent your laptop and all the documents to law enforcement. Okay? And I send that out, and I'm like, I hope they, I hope that now they go away. Well, what happens immediately after that is a troll on Twitter calling themselves One Snowflake outs me on a low-comment Twitter thread. What they do is that they make a comment, and they say, hey, Zach, they at my name.
Yeah.
Wait,
weren't you already public by then? I guess.
No. I'd done it anonymously. Okay. I had a shadow. I had my voice changed. They didn't know.
That's right. You mentioned that. Okay. Sorry.
Yeah. So, so this troll outs me, uses my real name, says, Zach, shouldn't you change your bio? Which I said, gainfully employed tech geek. Shouldn't you change your bio now that you're no longer employed in Silicon Valley, Mr. Leaker? And I went, whoa, who is this person? So I call up one of my team members, and I say, not involved with Google, involved in the leaks. And I'm like, hey, Patrick, what do you make of this? And he's like, don't respond. Let me handle it. He creates a honeypot in cyberspace. He gets the guy to click on a link. The guy clicks on the link. He hits the honeypot. The guy is not using Tor or a VPN. He's using, a raw connection, and that connection is coming from Google. So we realize that this is indeed a Google insider that is trying to harass me and doing some sort of psychological operation against
that
me.
would be the first thing that I would suspect, not anything to be surprised about, right?
Mm-hmm. So we capture his IP, we see that it's Google, and we're like, oh, crap. So Google does know that I'm the leaker. They've made a positive identification. They know that I don't just have their information, but that I am also the leaker. So that's when I create a dead man switch, because I know that this is the most dangerous part of my life at this point, because this information hasn't yet fully been leaked to the public, and it's only been partially disclosed, and that if they assassinate me, then they'll possibly stop that disclosure. So I created a dead man switch immediately on Twitter that says, in the event of my untimely death, all documents will become available for the public. And I let James O'Keefe from Project Veritas know that the embargo will lift if I die. Okay? 4 hours later, Google calls in a wellness check. And a wellness check is where the police come and ask you if you're suicidal or plan to shoot anyone. Okay? It's supposed to be like a friendly check with 6 questions. Well, they end up coming to a decoy address that I had given Google and arrive at my friend's house. I'm not there. And the police are really trying to get a hold of me, and they won't take my friend's word that I'm not at the house. And this is in Richmond, by the way, not San Francisco. And so, but then they won't leave. Eventually they go back to the car and they stake out in the car and they're talking to dispatch. My friend gives me a call and he's like, yo, Zach, these people the police are here and they really want to get a hold of you. I was like, do you think that they want to arrest me? He's like, absolutely, they want to arrest you. And I went, oh, no, this is bad. This is bad. This is bad. Well, I hope they don't come to me. 30 minutes later, I get a ring on my doorbell at my house in San Francisco.
Yeah.
Well, I don't answer it because I don't want to talk to the police, and I just or the postal man. I don't really check to see who it is. I just don't answer it. They keep on ringing it. They keep on ringing it. Now all of a sudden they're inside the gate, and now they're banging on my door. And they're banging on the door, and they're yelling my name, and they're asking for me to come down, but they're not identifying that they're police officers. They're just banging on my door trying to get me to come down. Well, I decide that I'm just going to lay low. I have a right not to talk to the police, so I invoke that, and I maintain silence. Well, the police, now in my gate, look down and see that there is a container of denatured alcohol that is used by my roommate in order to do fire dancing on the California festival scene. You've probably been to Burning Man or something like that. She does all that. So they see that, and they say, oh, man, what is this? Oh, it could be a bomb. Let's call the bomb squad in. So they call the bomb squad in. Well, if they call the bomb squad in because of a bomb threat, then they have to evacuate everyone. So they shut down the streets from Valencia 20th to Valencia 22nd. They start evacuating everyone. They evacuate the Marsh Theater. They evacuate all the stores. You know, the FBI is called in because it's now a bomb threat. And they start, would you imagine, can you believe that they actually placed police officers on the rooftops on the adjacent houses and that they had long-barreled sniper rifles? All this because of a tin can on my front porch. Well, I don't realize any of this is going on. I'm on my bed. I'm trying to forget all of this, so I start playing video games so that I don't get like all nervous. But to add to this, I start hearing a helicopter circling over my house, and I think to myself, "There's no way that this helicopter is for me. They're probably looking for someone that did a murder, and that's just coincidental that this helicopter is now flying over my house." Well, in parallel to this, my roommate, who just got the knock on his door from the Richmond police, he's now in San Francisco because he's worried about me. He comes there, and he realizes that the street to my house is completely blocked off. There's a police station on Valencia Street at 20th.
Wow.
He gives me a call, and he's like, yo, man, your street's blocked off. And I'm like, no, what, you're joking? He's like, nope, I am dead serious. I'm going to go investigate. He goes and says, who are you guys here for? You know, are you here for Zach? And they're like, yes, who are you? He's like, I'm his best friend. And then he gives me a call, and he's like, yep, they're here for you, and they want to negotiate. They want to just ask you 6 questions. And I'm like, they're blocking off the streets so they can ask me a wellness check? I'm like, I don't want to talk to them. And he's like, they're not going to leave until you come out. They're gonna set up shifts. And I was like, you're kidding me. For a wellness check? He's like, yeah. And so I talked to the police. I'm like, look, you guys are here because there's a wellness check being called in by my former employee because
Employer,
they're they're worried. They're retaliating against me. And I send them like the letter that I sent to Google telling them that I sent their stuff to law enforcement, right?
The resignation letter,
I don't send them the resignation letter. I just send them the letter that I sent to the law firm about how I was turning in their information to law enforcement.
Okay.
Right? Well, that's not good enough for them. They have to talk to me. So so I said, look, if you need to see my face, because that's important, then I'll meet you at the gate. We can have the conversation, and then you can ask me the questions. They said, that's fine. We agree to that. I go downstairs to talk to them at the gate of my house, and when I go down there, I realize that there is a bomb robot with its hand through the gate, grabbing the container of denatured alcohol and pulling it out through the door. And I went, you've got to be kidding me. And I call back the police officer. I'm like, I can't come out. There's a bomb robot in my door. And he's like, yeah, we have to clear the area and make sure that there's no bombs. And I was like, I was like, you kidding me? So I wait. And then I call the police officer back, and I'm like, okay, let's meet. And he's like, I can't. He's like, actually, it's changed. You now have to come out. We have to detain you and then ask you these questions. I was like, no. That's not part of the agreement. You agreed to come and to see my face, and we would do these questions. Like, I'm sorry.
I don't know why you didn't just do FaceTime or Skype or something.
That's what I was telling them. I wanted to do it through the phone. Like, they're telling me that they need to see me so that they can see my face.
They can see you as well on the phone, with technology today.
Yeah. So I'm giving them a technological solution. I'm giving them a face-to-face solution. But no, now they're moving the goalpost for the third time, saying that
they have your denatured alcohol too, and they have that too. Yeah. What else do they have?
That's it. They got that.
Okay, that's enough.
They got that. So finally, I'm like, okay, well, if they're going to shoot me or they're going to arrest me, whatever they're going to planning on doing to escalate this further, at least there's a bunch of people all with their cell phones taking videos on top of the rooftops. I tell my friend, I was like, you need to video record this, and I'm going to record this. So I get on a business jacket because it's cold in San Francisco. I come out with my hands up, walking slowly. The police have their guns drawn, pointed at me. At any moment, someone can get trigger happy, and I can get riddled with bullets. Like, I'm very acutely aware of that possibility. So I walk slowly, recording them. They're shouting directions through a loudspeaker telling me what I need to do. Like, turn around, lift up your jacket, walk backwards, put your hands behind your back, and then officers, rush up and grab my arms, and then they hold them behind my back in sort of a chicken hold, chicken wing,
yes.
Chicken wing me, right? And then they go through my pockets looking for weapons, knives, whatever. I don't have any. They detain me, and then a guy comes up and starts asking me questions. Are you suicidal? Do you want to hurt yourself? Do you want to hurt anyone else? Are you, angry? Do you have, fantasies of, hurting anyone? Are there any medications that you should be on that you haven't taken? And I answer truthfully to all these things. And they're like, so why would Google call this this wellness check on you? And that, at that point, once the cops admitted that it was that Google had called in the wellness check, I was like, this is a confirmation I'm looking for. Google did call it in. And I said, yeah, I know why they called this wellness check, because I sent all this stuff to law enforcement, which was the second time that I was telling them this, right? And they're like, well, do you have any proof that you did this? And I said, yes. Give me my phone. They give me my phone back. I pull up a picture of the letter that I'd taken a picture of, and I give it to them. And they look at this and like, oh my God, so you're a whistleblower. I was like, yep. Like, so Google's retaliating against you. I was like, yep. And then after that, once they realized what was going on, then everything de-escalated. The bomb squad finished up their thing. I joked with the police officers. They were really friendly and professional, and then everything sort of ended at that point. I realized at this point that Google is malicious. They're trying to, they possibly tried to bring me in to get psychologically evaluated and then declared insane by one of their crooked doctors to use later against, in a civil action or to discredit me within the media. And so at this point, my team that's in D.C. working on the story is like, you need to get on the first plane and come to D.C. and get out of San Francisco. And I do exactly that. 8 a.m., I'm on a plane. I'm in D.C. Okay, I'm in D.C. We get Sarah Carter to do a write-up on the story and some other people, True Pundits, Michael Moore guy, not the Michael Moore from Michigan, but the Michael Moore from True Pundit.
Okay.
And then I go to New York. We videotape me without, fully disclosed, no anonymity this time, no black shadow, nothing, like just me in the flesh. And then we decide that we're going to disclose all 950 pages to the public. Unfortunately, we disclosed on a Wednesday. on the busiest news day of the year. Okay, Hong Kong protests, 2 mass shootings, a stock market crash. There was like another big event, and then the Google leaks that came out on the same day. It was literally the sky is falling on that day, which was unfortunate that all happened on the same day that we were disclosing this. And as a result, our story kind of got buried in the noise of everything that was happening. In retrospect, I wish that I had put an embargo and forced them to release it the next Monday, because that next Monday, that next week, nothing happened. This would have been great for a story to come in and occupy the news cycle. But it is what it is.
Well, it's not too late, is it? I mean,
well, I mean, yeah, I don't think. I mean, the thing is that this story's got legs. Like, it keeps on burning. Like,
all the more reason it's not too late. For gosh sakes, yeah. So,
yeah, and this is why I'm coming out here, to radio stations like yours and telling the populace, because they're hearing it for the very first time. And they need to hear what Google's really doing. And the thing is, if they want to see what Google's doing, all the documents are available right now at Project Veritas. They can search for Google Leaks. Project Veritas is going to bring it up as the first results. Okay, and if they see that, they're going to be able to see this machine learning fairness, the Project Purple Rain, the Twiddler, the Superroot systems, all the YouTube censorship, the YouTube blacklist that the Google executives have, sworn under oath didn't exist. I've exposed it, all 40 pages of that. I've exposed the Google News blacklist that existed on their Android phones, right? And what do we see? We see a consistent pattern of censorship by conservatives. And if you want an example of how
censorship of conservatives, I think you mean, right?
Yeah, censorship of conservatives.
Yeah, because you said by conservatives, so.
Oh, my bad. Yeah, censorship of conservatives, right? And if you want to get an example of how bad it is, the YouTube query blacklist had as its banned phrase the 8th Amendment of the Constitution of Ireland. Okay, why did they blacklist this term? Because this term guaranteed the right to life for the unborn, and Google's got an agenda. They're so radical about being pro-abortion that they had to censor the 8th Amendment of the Constitution of Ireland, right? Cancer cures is banned. NYC shooter, Texas shooter, all these things involving shooters. They're and then with the shooters, when there's like Stephen Paddock against Trump, or Stephen Paddock associated with Clinton, like what they're doing is that they're trying to suppress positive sentiment about Trump, and they're trying to associate all these mass shooters with Trump. And whenever there's association between these shooters and deep state, they're trying to suppress that. And once you see like the 40 pages, it's just like this awakening. You're seeing the machinations and the details of how Google's implementing its control the information landscape.
Okay.
And once you see that their statements about how they don't have political ideology.
We're in the home stretch of our first hour. Zach, we're in the home stretch of our first hour. We have about 15 seconds left. We have a whole hour ahead of us, and we're going to open up the phone lines next hour. I want to thank you for being with us for your story. You can stay with us next hour.
I hate to hang up on you, but I'm sorry, baby, but I have to go. It's time for that wonderful record show. I'd love to visit, but you'll have to call back. KSCO has the inside track.
11:06 and 21, 22, 23 seconds. Hey, it's not every day that we get to have a Google whistleblower on the radio here, and it's not anything to joke about, actually. So
I'm sorry, baby, but I really gotta go to KSCO Radio. Bye.
Okay, and we have back on Zach Vorhies. What? Zach, help me out here. I'm sorry, I didn't write it down before when you told me. Zach, are you there? Are we potted up, Alex? Because I'm not hearing Zach.
Hey, you hear me?
Yeah, now I hear you. Okay, it's a little.
Yeah, there you go. Vorhies, he's a jolly good fellow.
You did say that, and what's wrong with my brains? You know, God, I didn't write it down. F-O-R, he's, and then quote. I mean, not quote. Parentheses. A jolly good fellow. Okay, now, we used the entire first hour of the Saturday special to hear your story, and I'm sure there's a lot more to it. But because we're a talk radio program, I want to open up the phone lines for pretty much the entire second hour. But I do want to ask you some, a basic question. It's almost like a devil's advocate question, okay? You're bringing this to light just to bring it to light, or do you think there are something needs to be done, to this company? I mean, they are a private company, and they're a very big and powerful private company. Are they doing anything? Private companies can do what they want, can't they? I mean, it's not like they're a public utility, right? Where they're or a public university. One of my super pet peeves has always been that the universities intentionally hire politically left of center people to the tune of 80 or 90%. To fill the kids' heads with their political propaganda, and it shouldn't be that way. They should be, but can't Google really do whatever it wants to do? If it wants to deplatform people, let them deplatform people. If they want to silence conservatives to try to influence the people to vote liberal, isn't that a right for them to do that, or not?
Not according to Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act, which classifies an entity as either a publisher, which exercises editorial control and can be sued for defamation, or a platform, which is immune from lawsuits related to defamation as long as it doesn't apply editorial control over things that are included on its website. Google, for decades, has claimed that it is a platform immune from lawsuits related to the content hosted on its systems, and it has used that to grow into a giant monopoly. Now, all of a sudden, deciding to apply censorship and political control over the entire information landscape. This means that they are no longer a platform. They are now a publisher, yet they are acting like either when it suits them and neither when it doesn't. And this is wrong, and it needs to be corrected.
Okay, how should it be? How should it be corrected? Wow, how do you answer that in sound bites?
Well, if
if anybody can, you can.
Look, the New York Times could be sued for defamation. Google should be able to be sued for defamation as well. They are intentionally boosting misinformation and slander to the top pages of its Google search results in order to control the narrative. And when that information is untrue and factually inaccurate, they need to be held account. They're claiming that they shouldn't be held account because they are a platform. Yet this is not true. They need to have their legal immunity stripped away, and they should be held to account for under RICO, Sherman Antitrust, and also sedition.
Wow. Okay, great. 479-1080 in area 831 is the phone number to call. You can also email mz@ksco.com if you want to participate in today's discussion with Zach here. And we've got a number of callers already. Let's take our first call. It'll be Terry in Capitola. Terry, welcome to the Saturday Special with Zach and MZ. You're on.
Hey, Michael.
Hey.
So you know who I am. But
yes.
Yes. If anybody wants to confirm the way that they skew search results, type in American inventors into the search term for Google. What comes up is 40 pictures of American inventors. 35 of them are black. 15 of them are white. Now, there's nothing wrong with them. I'm sure there's many fine black inventors who have done some important inventions, but one of the people who they they listed as an important invention is Marjorie Joyner, and she invented a hair straightener for black people. I'm sure that's an important invention, but they did miss Orville and Wilbur Wright. They did miss Shockley, Brett, and Bardeen, who invented the transistor. They did miss, and I could go on and on and on and on. And so clearly they have a political agenda. They decide that they're going to skew the search results. And maybe it's a well-intended. They decide, well, maybe blacks have not been well represented in the inventing ranks. They don't get the credit that they should. So we definitely need to promote people who invented a hair straightener over people who invented the transistor or the airplane.
Reparations, as it were.
Exactly. Reparations via search engine.
Yeah.
And by the way, Michael, of all the shows I've listened to in the last year or two, this is number one. This is amazing. And I tell you, somebody needs to take control over Google. They need to be, I use DuckDuckGo now. My wife uses DuckDuckGo. We refuse to use Google, and it's a pretty good search engine, and they don't skew anything. And I think that they really need to be brought to heel. And I agree with your caller. They need to lose their exemption as a platform. They need to get sued for their libel and slander, like any other publication who libels or slanders people. And they need to start costing them money.
Okay.
That's right.
Terry, Zach, do you have anything kind to say to Terry for supporting you, for saying such nice things about you?
I agree with him. And the things that Google is doing is really creepy.
Oh, man.
He talked about American inventors, that also exists for American scientists. African Americans are overrepresented as the majority of the American scientists and American inventors. But you can also try the same thing with, a white woman and white husband with their children into image search. What you're going to get almost exclusively mixed race couples. And that's cool. Like, I have nothing wrong with mixed race couples. But the fact is that Google's got this agenda in order to have a mixed race sort of like
politically correct, just like what do you call that? Affirmative action. Yeah, that brings to mind affirmative action.
Well, and Michael, you know that I'm in a mixed race marriage, and that's just fine. I have no problem with that. It's just, but
that doesn't make you racist, Terry.
By the way, there was a show on. I'll give a credit to Mark Levin show. If you watched the Mark Levin Sunday show a week ago, there was a professor on from Harvard. He's a psychologist and an avowed liberal. He says he was left-leaning, supports Hillary, et cetera, but he has analyzed statistically the influence that Google has on information. It is the river of information that we all depend on, and they skew it so much that they can skew people's thinking about any number of things. And he has calculated and done rigorous scientific analysis. This is a Harvard professor. He's a pretty well-credentialed guy. He believes that they have the ability to shift 15 million votes in the next election just by coloring search results. 15 million votes. This is a monster.
Wow.
Yeah, you talked about Robert Epstein, right?
Yes, that's the guy. In fact, if you have Google or Hulu or something like that, I encourage anybody listening to look at that show. It's as scary as what you're telling us. Just same ballpark of scary. It's the same scary, actually.
Part of my disclosure was to help professors like Robert Epstein, because he's been at the forefront of this. He's been slandered as a conspiracy theorist, despite the fact that he was the editor-in-chief of Psychology Today and a Harvard-trained psychologist professor. And Google has been slandering him as unbiased, as biased, a conspiracy theorist, for calling out exactly what they were doing and running experiments proving that Google was hiding search results in order to flip the election. And my disclosure turns Robert Epstein's conspiracy theories, in quotes, into conspiracy facts.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly. And and the interesting thing is he is a left-leaning guy. He's a Hillary supporter. He's an avowed liberal, but he's like a classical liberal. He kind of believes in an open society, as do we all. And they're slandering him now. And there's a good example of how they could be sued for slander. For what they say about him.
All right, so that brings to mind somewhere along in my research before doing this interview with Zach, I came across the claim that Google is a pharmaceutical company. And pharmaceutical companies can't be sued any more than platforms can't be sued, I guess. I'm learning something, and I'm learning a lot in this program myself. Isn't it true that pharmaceutical companies can't be sued? They put billions of money into a fund, and you see all these commercials on television, at least, saying if you have gotten cancer and you've been exposed to such and such, or you took a particular drug or whatever, you may be entitled to substantial compensation without even, going to court. Wow. God, I mean, this is real. The hair is being curled on my entire body with what I'm learning today. We did several years ago a Saturday special with a guy who had written a book. I found it in my iPhone, not the whole thing, but just the promo that I produced. I'm going to play it right now. It's going to sound a little tinny, but I want to hear it. I just want to hear it. I want you to. Oh. God dang it! My nose keeps hitting it.
So we invited Santa Cruz County.
No. Here it is, and I'm not going to hit it with my nose this time.
Isn't Google just wonderful? Now, I'm not just talking about the internet search engine that has put all the others to shame. I'm speaking of all the valuable services that Google provides and gives away for free. You know, things like Gmail. My whole life since 2006 is documented and searchable in Gmail. Picasa web photos for storing and managing all your photos online. Free website creation and hosting through Google Sites. And my personal favorite, Google Voice. The brilliant and generous Google folks actually give you a free phone number that you can use month after month, also for free. It will ring all your phones simultaneously, take voice messages and email them to you. Do conference calls, block unwanted and creepy callers, transcribe your messages, and much more, all for free. Did you hear me? Free! But there's a man named Scott Cleland who thinks Google, the company whose motto is do no evil, is evil, at least potentially so. Find out why on the next KSCO special, this Saturday, 10 a.m. to 12 noon, right here on Things May Not Always Be What They Seem Radio, AM 1080 KSCO.
I don't even know when that was, but it was at least 5 or 6 or 7 years ago, Anyhow, the discussion today has prompted me to look for that, and indeed I found it. All right, Terry, are you done?
Their new motto is do plenty of evil.
Do plenty of evil
as you possibly can. Yes.
All right. Great. Okay, thanks for calling.
Thanks. Their motto from don't be evil to do the right thing, if you can believe that. So they know that do no evil was not attainable anymore.
Okay. Terry, thank you for your call. Here's David in San Francisco. David, you're on KSCO with Zach and MZ.
Yeah, first of all, how are you, Michael?
Hi, pretty good. Haven't heard from you in a while.
Yeah. Long time ago, 10 years ago, there was a famous subprime scandal where up to 40 million houses were lost to these crooked bankers, right? And at the very moment that we could have stopped that, Acorn, which was training people in how to prevent foreclosures and how to avoid being ripped off by crooked lenders, Acorn was devastated by Project Veritas, right? And so I have no respect for Project Veritas. They helped cause the homelessness that we have in America right now because they ruined Acorn's reputation. And Acorn had contracts with all 50 states to provide lawyers to people if they were being ripped off by crooked lenders. And at the very moment...
Let me be clear. Acorn fell because they were giving tax advice on how to hide income for underage prostitutes. Okay.
Well, first of all, that's a lie.
They were doing,
and second of all, that was...
And they needed to be brought to justice.
No, that was a big lie.
That's why they collapsed.
And it was an edited tape. An edited tape.
They had the entire thing released. You're taking what the media is saying at face value. You need to do your own research.
Well, let's pretend. Let's pretend that that was an accurate tape out of one location. You ruined the reputation of an entire organization that was dealing with 50 states. You took one person's statement, even though it was taken out of context.
No,
you helped.
No, sir, you're wrong.
You helped
3 out
ruin.
of 4 places all gave tax advice on how to hide income from underage prostitution, and they did it.
Oh, you're such a liar! You're saying every chapter did that.
We're not gonna get anywhere with
available on YouTube
with this. Anyhow, that. So I don't want the program to deteriorate into a shouting match. Lucas and Soledad, you're on the air. Lucas, you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Go ahead.
Colonel Terry. I think that was Colonel Terry.
No, it wasn't Colonel Terry. It was David in San Francisco. Go ahead.
All right. Well, David in San Francisco, completely wrong. Veritas was all about prostitution, just like Zach was saying. It was not about
Veritas. You're talking not Veritas. You're talking about the
Acorn.
Acorn, right?
Acorn. I'm sorry. And this whole business. Well, first thing that caught my attention when he said it, he said 40 million. There is no way. I'm in construction. I have been for 45 years. That did not happen. So anyway, that's besides the point. That's not why I called. So my thing is like right now, I do about 100 to 200 homes a year, whatever. Okay, I'm building homes. Okay, Google has a big participation in our new program on our computer. Okay, which never been like that. I did not like the idea that I had to give out my personal information to Google today and yesterday. I didn't like that at all, okay, because I just work for a company. So, first of all, I think Google is, like Zach is saying, is trying to get into a lot of different ways to get in people's homes. So, that is not my idea of having fun, okay? Second of all, Veritas, is that what it was called? That one company?
Project Veritas.
Yeah. Wasn't Breitbart the owner of? Didn't he first start that?
So Andrew Breitbart was working with James O'Keefe to help him get started, I believe, with Project Veritas before he got assassinated by arsenic poisoning.
Yeah. So my thing is there was a couple different stories on there, Zach. I'm assuming you're still on the line here. There's a couple different stories, but one of the main stories was, this is how the final story came out, is that one day he was jogging. He was only like 45 years old. And one day he was jogging, and he had a heart attack. Well, I always question that whole thing is, here's a man, if he's jogging, he must be I think he's trying to keep in shape, okay? And at 45 years old, he just had a heart attack. And meanwhile, because he was working with O'Keefe, okay, I thought it was very strange because O'Keefe and Breitbart, or whoever, was actually finding out a lot of different things through going in doing investigations on Democrats. This guy he died one day. I just thought that was very strange. Okay?
Well, is my sound on, by the way?
It is. You're on. Yeah, he just thought it was me talking, I think. The caller thought that that it was me when it was you talking. So go ahead.
Right.
Okay.
So one of the last tweets that Andrew Breitbart did was something along the lines of, how is it possible that people don't know that John Podesta is involved in child trafficking, right? And then that was like one of his last tweets, and then he died. And he died of arsenic poisoning, and then the autopsy guy that was doing the autopsy on Breitbart also ended up dying of arsenic poisoning. It's a wild story, and what we got to realize is that the criminals have been in charge for a very long time, and now with Donald Trump, their rule is coming to an end, I believe.
Well, you're absolutely right, Zach, because the bottom line is when President Trump went into office, before he was even elected, his main words were, "I'm going to drain the swamp." And for Democrats who vote for Democrats, do not understand, here's a man that is actually trying very desperately to drain the swamp. But he has every 535 members, and I won't say all 535 members between the House and the Senate, coming down on him, who are worth millions. Those people are worth millions, yet they only make $157,000 a year. Now, how did they get there? Unless they were doing a lot of favors to lobbyists. And that was my big thing. Yep. And I'm sorry, Google is a big part of this. I've been hearing for months now how Google is creating a lot of problems for anyone who is in the Republican Party. And if Democrats will see that, then they are really dumb. I'm sorry.
What else is new?
Right.
Okay, thank you, Lucas. Appreciate your call to 479-1080. Here's Marianne and Salinas. Go ahead, Marianne, you're on.
Hi, MC.
Hi.
Thanks for taking my call, and I'm so glad you have Jack on. Listen, I read an article that's dated September 21st, last Saturday. It's written by Mike Adams from something called naturalnews.com, and he's referencing an article from fortune.com.
Yeah.
And this is about quantum supremacy. Google has
Marianne, it sounds like you're on a speakerphone or something. Any chance of you getting on? You sound really echoey and hard to understand. We want to hear what you have to say.
Okay. I don't know how to do that. I'm going to click this
Okay.
up. I hope I don't hang up on myself.
No,
okay,
but just talk closer into the microphone. That's all you can do, I guess.
Okay. Is that better?
No, but go ahead. We can hear you.
Well, let me do my best. I'm sorry. I haven't done this. So Google has achieved quantum supremacy. Are you familiar with quantum supremacy, that term?
Yeah, I've heard it. They basically got a 53-qubit quantum computer.
Oh, it's just when I need to know this information. Okay, I'm sorry.
Someone is trying to get you, so appreciate your call here. Let's see, our next caller will be Shelley in Monterey about Bible prophecies. Yeah, I hope we're going to stay on the subject here, Shelley, but you're on.
Yeah, MD, I really give you homage for bringing back on. It's pretty brave of you when you've got a large population in Santa Cruz that work for Google.
Yeah.
So, Zach, I'm
Thank
going
you.
to take my answer off the air. I just wanted to know, I'm sure you had moments by yourself where this seems so big for one man like yourself to take on this fight. And I don't know, you seem pretty intelligent, so I'm sure you've gone through the Bible here and there. How do you think your fight is going to make a difference when all of this is in the Bible, that all of this will happen, and that Satan will want to mark us all? And so I'll just take my answer off the air. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. So I've been, reviewing sort of the New World Order agenda. And what I've realized is that it's an ancient script on how to build a one world government. And in order for them to build the one world government, they have to get our acquiescence. We have to consent to them ruling over us. And so the way that we defeat them is that we just have to become aware and awaken to their machinations. And once we become aware, then we become activated. And then if we as a people don't accept what it is that they're doing and cast a spotlight to what they're doing, then then what will happen is that it will collapse, they'll regroup, and that they'll try again. This is not a one-time thing. This is a cycle, and the cycle repeats throughout history. And the only thing that we have to do in order to defeat them each and every time is to awaken and call them out.
Why don't I hear any response to that?
Well, I'm here, but Zach, I just want to give you.
Are you hearing me?
Yeah, I heard you. And Shelley is still on. She was going to take her answer off the air, but she didn't hang up, so she heard it on the phone. Go ahead, Shelley.
Thank you, Zach. that really helps and inspires me. I just want to send you all of God's blessings and be strong. And thank you for taking on this huge, huge fight.
Yeah, and don't get assassinated. Let's see. Bob in Carmel sends an email. Every time I search on Google for anything political, the first several pages are almost all liberal sources. Okay. Thank you. Let's see. Who's our next
sources?
Leftist. Okay, fine. Let's see. Our next caller is. Oh, you know what? It says don't answer. I guess it's someone who's listening on hold or something.
You can answer if you want.
I can put
maybe
Wendell
risky.
on.
Wendell, yeah.
Okay,
Hello.
Wendell. It says do not answer. So I saw that. I read that after I'd answered.
Well, I think that someone might have been insulted because I wanted to wish you and everybody Rosh Hashanah.
Oh, okay.
And I think he got upset because I wanted to. He said he's not Jewish, and I think Michael is. I just want to tell him it. Right.
Michael, yeah, MZ, me, I am very, very Jewish and
Thank
very
you.
Zionist. Very Jewish and very Zionist.
Yeah, so I just wanted to tell you happy Rosh and all the business people I deal with in this county, the same thing.
Right.
That's all.
Okay, thank you.
So just enjoy your show like every Saturday. Okay.
Thank you, Wendell. Appreciate it. Am I supposed to hang up on you, or do you need to listen? Okay,
No,
I can hang up. I can hang up and go to. Does the guest have a website? Whoever that is, who wants to know that?
Hello.
Yeah, you're on.
Yes, sir. Dan, Pacific Grove. I have one question for your guest.
Okay.
And that's all I'd like to provide. Do you have any need, or are you seeking any public support for your efforts? If that is the case, please let us know how we can provide that.
Public support monetarily or public? I mean, so the best way that the public can support me is by going to my Twitter, which is Perpetual Maniac, or you can search in Zach Vorhies or Google Exposed. And if you look for Perpetual Maniac, you will find me. Please follow me. Please retweet the things that I'm doing, because I am fighting for your freedom. I'm fighting to have a free and open society. And I am fighting against intolerance and the control of information. And if people want to make a difference, they don't have to get out there. They don't have to protest. All they have to do is retweet the things that I'm retweeting, because I am fighting Google. And that is the most important thing that we can do right now for America, because they who control the information control the past, and they who control the past control the future.
Thank you very much. Perhaps you could repeat that towards the end of the show and make sure everybody's got it. That's all I have. Thank you very much.
Okay, take care. Here's Marianne on a much better line. Go ahead, Marianne and Salinas.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
Oh, much better. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, okay. Now I know what I'm doing a little bit. So I don't understand what quantum supremacy is. It sounds really horrible, like Google's new quantum processor took just 200 seconds to complete a computing task that would normally require 10,000 years on a supercomputer. And so the upshot of this is that they will have all control over all information by the year 2022. And there's lots of information here. So all cryptocurrency encryption that uses 256-bit encryption will be null and void. They can get into computer secrets. Am I talking about anything that sounds vaguely familiar to you, or is this just a bunch of hooey?
Yeah. So let me answer your question. Most of it's disinfo, fear porn, and the reason why is because, well, first off, quantum computers can only do certain types of problems extremely fast, and it's actually a very tiny subset. One of the things that the intelligence agency has been getting everybody to use is to use a form of encryption that is very weak against quantum computers. And as a result, which is called RSA encryption, and Bitcoin uses SHA-1 encryption, or hashing actually, or Bitcoin. The thing is that these types of encryption are quantum weak. And anything that's quantum weak can be broken by these quantum computers. And the intelligence agency has purposely guided us to using these quantum weak algorithms so that when these quantum computers can become, the thing, then all of our previous communications can be broken in seconds and they can read it. So most of the connections you're doing right now are going to be broken by quantum computers in the future. However, what's going to happen is that there are a whole classification of algorithms that are considered quantum strong. We're going to transition to that. Bitcoin's going to transition to that. It's not a large technical problem. In order to do that, you just either increase the number of bits, or you change to a different algorithm. The fact that they purposely had us choose quantum weak algorithms, I believe, is by design. And right now, the media is trying to make you afraid because that's what they do best, and that gets a bunch of clicks. And people are controlled by fear, not by pleasure. So what I have to say to you is, don't worry. Yes, it's kind of a bad situation in some regards, but they're not going to be able to crack anything or whatever. It's just a bunch of mostly misinformation to make you afraid. So don't be afraid.
Well, thanks be to God. Thank you for that information.
Thank you, Marianne, and thank you for calling in on a much better line, and thank you for not being interrupted and losing your train of thought like what happened before.
Thanks so much.
Take care. Hey, we have a totally full board now. For a while, it was jammed. So if you want to call 831-479-1080 and talk to Zach and MZ, now is a good time to do it. So, Zach, what's next for you, or are you not allowed to talk about it?
I really can't talk about it. There's big things happening. I'm really excited about it, but I am now enacting a cone of silence about the current happenings. But people should stay tuned to the news. They should follow me on Twitter @PerpetualManiac, and because I'm going to be disclosing all of it through Twitter. And the stories are going to be generating. And the thing is that usually the stories I'm going to report them first before the big media companies are going to be reporting them. And the more that people retweet them, the larger they get that amplification out, the more people are going to wake up to what exactly is happening with Google. And that's a great thing because that means more freedom and sovereignty for us and our children.
Okay, let's talk about Alex Jones. Okay, Alex Jones was ceremony. I don't even know that word. He was deplatformed from YouTube and Google and all that. And I can't wait to hear your comments on that.
Yeah. So what's really telling is that Alex Jones was removed from all the social media platforms at the same time. And what I mean by same time, I mean within 5 minutes of each other, right? Like Twitter, YouTube, other places, he was kicked off and denied entry. And when YouTube, said a few weeks ago that they are an open platform and anyone can upload anything, Owen Schroyer of InfoWars said, "Oh, if that's the case, then I'll just create my InfoWars channel again." Within like 48 hours, their channel was gone. And so what I see here is that on one side of the face, Google is saying that they are an open platform, but on the other side of the face, they are a censorship regime. And Alex.
Okay, well, Alex is a clear Trump supporter, right? I mean, there's no doubt about that. He's a lot of other things too, but he's a clear Trump supporter. Do you think that's the main reason that he's been deplatformed, besides the fact that he's so popular, or at least has been so popular? I think he's more he might be more popular now than ever. I don't know. I don't know what to think about that. What do you think?
I've heard some rumors out there that they're funded by an intelligence operation, which makes sense because despite the fact that they've been kicked off, they're still very well funded and they're able to continue on. And even though they've got a large reach, the amount
are you talking about you're talking about InfoWars?
Talking about InfoWars, right?
Okay.
Like,
all right.
He was saying how hard it was to get to stay on the air when he had full access to YouTube, and then they kicked him off, but he hasn't really seemed to slow down. He's still producing all the content. And so there's a theory out there that he's funded by an intelligence operation that I don't know for sure, and I don't necessarily believe it or not believe it. I'm just saying that is a rumor that exists out there. So, people should use logic and reasoning and come to their own conclusions. I don't know.
Oh, okay. Well, there's no question that there's censorship involved, in deplatforming him, right?
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
That's
I'm not asking you for a value judgment on Alex Jones and his theories and so forth, but I am asking you, and I think I know your answer, to comment on his deplatforming.
Right. And despite, even if he is, part of an intelligence network, we are an open society, and people have the right and the freedom of speech to talk in a public center. And I support, places that are backed by different entities. Like Russia Today is funded by the Russian government. They say very important things from time to time. And in fact, every day, Zero Hedge might be the same. They have their open point of view. And in a free and open society, that's what we've accepted as acceptable, right? Yeah. Everyone should be able to speak. And the fact is that they are having a concerted effort to kick these people out of the public forums is absolutely atrocious and against everything that we stand for in America.
Right. Okay, we have a caller. I think it's Eileen in Santa Cruz about Breitbart. Go ahead, Eileen. You're on with Zach and MZ.
Hi, thank you. I'm trying to turn my radio down so it's not playing in the background. I'm sorry. Let me step outside for just a second. Okay, so, yeah, Zach, great show. Oh, my gosh, this is just very interesting.
Thank you.
Regarding Andrew Breitbart, he was very close friends of my journalism school teacher, who is Lee Stranahan. Do you know anything about Lee?
Oh, yeah, Lee from Fault Lines.
Yeah, and he started Citizen Journalism School, which was Andrew's dream. He kind of carried on his dream, and then what was I going to say? So you believe that he was killed arsenic poisoning?
Yeah, I believe that's the story.
You know what would be really interesting is if to get you and Lee together and do a program on that. That would be fascinating because
after this Google stuff is over, the problem is that if I go too far out into the weeds, it dilutes the message. But I would like to do that because the story needs to be told.
Yes, Zach. If I could meet with you, are you still in California, or have you moved out of state?
I'm still in California, though I'm not currently in California today or for the first half of this week. I'll be in California the latter half of this week.
Okay, I would love to give my contact information to MZ and connect with you. I think we've got some real important things.
You can also connect with me through Twitter at Perpetual Maniac.
Okay. Okay, I'll do that. Thank you so much. Great show.
Okay, Eileen, thanks for calling 479-1080, where we do have lines open. But here's Richard in Salinas. Richard, you're on.
Yeah, a couple of things. Project Veritas, O'Keefe has been a guest on Alex Jones' program for years, numerous times when he's come up with various things like the abortion situation. So I don't know if you want to reflect that as to they seem to trust him. So maybe it's just a rumor that somebody else has started on that. The other thing is, did Google affect the original election that Trump won when they thought he wasn't going to win? Did they get involved heavily in that, or they just assumed he was going to lose?
Oh, great question.
They got involved in that. Yeah. So what they did is they poisoned their data lakes and removed a bunch of information related to Clinton's extensive criminal history, like the Clinton body count, which is a devastating collection of people that have died around Hillary Clinton that benefited her. They removed that information. They removed. They censored a bunch of information. One of the ways that they censored it is not just when the Google results, but when you're typing in search queries, there is a feature called auto-suggest, which will try to predict the words that you're typing. And this is one of the ways that people figure out what other people are thinking, because it's supposed to be generated by what the users are actually searching for. So if you type in, Clinton body count, then as you type in the first letter of the last word count, the letter C, should autocomplete to what users are really searching for. Now, what they did is they removed this. And the problem about this is that there's like certain parts of your cognition where things will slip in subconsciously, subliminally, and you don't really have your filters on. And so the auto-suggest feature is one of these times because you don't expect that to be hacked. But that's actually one of the mechanisms that they use to slip this in. And this is what Dr. Robert Epstein, former editor-in-chief of Psychology Today, has been pointing out in his studies, that this has become a target for Google to manipulate so that people are prevented from finding dirt on Hillary Clinton. And it's not just in the United States election that this has been done. The Supreme Court of Brazil ruled that Google had colluded with the opponent of the current president in order to bury information, damaging information about his opponents. So this is an international racket that Google is participating in. It's not just the United States.
Did they also participate in the midterm elections? Because I remember watching the election results, and there was a number of Republican senators leading in their races all over the country, and all of a sudden, one by one, they just fell before all the vote count came in. And then, in particular, Orange County, all 6 Republicans down there in that area lost their elections. They're basically in a Republican area.
You may remember that Google, that when someone would search in California GOP, that Google would return a result saying that their ideology was Nazism, and the reason why is because Google is ingesting Wikipedia, which is being vandalized by radical leftists, and they put that in the ideology as Nazism, and that went through peer review, and then Google put that on their page. And the fact that they also have boosted authoritative sources of information, including the New York Times and the Washington Post and the Wall Street Journal, means that their agenda outcompetes all their agendas by artificial market manipulation. And so, yes, did they manipulate the election? Yes, they did. And they did it to great effect, and they're still doing it to this day because they're not reversing their manipulation. They're actually doubling down.
You think Trump will go intervene on the Google?
You know what? There's a maxim which is don't interrupt the enemy while it's destroying itself. And right now, with this campaign that I'm doing, I think that Trump is sitting on the sidelines. He was going to do an executive order, but then the executive order never got released. And the reason for that, I believe, is because before that executive order was going to be released, I disclosed all the damning information about Google's sedition and their manipulation. And so what's happening is that I believe that the executive branch is just taking a wait-and-see approach to see what happens. And then once the story runs its course, then they'll act. And I think that they'll act before the 2020 election.
Well, stay tuned. A lot more to come, it sounds like. Thank you very much.
Wow, scary stuff. Yeah, totally free line. So we have 10 minutes left of the program. So if you want to call and talk to Zach, now is the time to dial 831-479-1080. And if you don't, I got plenty of stuff to talk to Zach about. The Google colluding with China. There's been a good amount of that in the news that somehow filtered through to us. How did that filter through? I guess.
Yeah.
Have any thoughts on that?
I do. So Peter Thiel wrote a New York Times op-ed, accusing Google or questioning whether they were committing treason because they were working with their military to work on what he called the AI Manhattan Project. Now, if you remember, the nuclear Manhattan Project was during World War II, where the United States was collecting all the scientists together to try to create the nuclear bomb as quickly as possible. And right now, we've got a similar situation with the state of AI. Google is using its deep mind to create nothing less than a godlike AI system, and they're doing it in China. And the way that this works is that they collect all the information, in all the planetary databases around the world, that exist publicly and privately, and they feed it into this AI, and it's able to make reasons. Think of it like Amazon Alexa, except, pushed into the world of Star Trek. And this is the thing that they're working on with China and their military. While at the same time, what Google has done is sabotaged its relationship with the U.S. military. There was a project called Project Maven that Google had agreed to work with the U.S. military. Well, they used a series of operations within the company in order to raise awareness about the project, and then the employees staged a protest, and then Google used that as justification to cancel Project Maven. As a result of that, they said, well, we need to have an AI group, an AI ethics group. They then, after that, canceled Project Jedi with the military. They created this AI ethics board, and then they inserted a poison pill. What they did is that they had someone from the Heritage Foundation, a minority person, which seemed like it was a great fit. But then what happened is that the activists, the radical activists within the company, staged a protest calling the Heritage Foundation LGBT unfriendly and accusing them of bigotry and demanding that this person resign. Google then responded saying, well, now we've got to cancel the whole AI ethics board, and they took it down. And so now there's no AI ethics board. Google is saying that there is no need for an AI ethics board. Meanwhile, they're creating an AI superweapon within China's military. That's the state of what Google is doing.
Wow. All right, let's go back to the phones. Downtown Al, you're on with Zach and MZ.
Hey, Mike and Zach. Hey, Zach, you tell a very gripping story, and I'm wondering, how are you getting your information out there? Do you have an agent or something like that? Because it seems to me Twitter is, not adequate. You should be an interviewee on all sorts of different shows. And
yeah,
I just wonder what you're doing about that in terms of promoting, since, the information that was recently released, you said was, kind of overwhelmed by competing stuff in the news cycle.
Oh, it was the timing, and I said that the timing, try again.
Exactly.
Right.
And, I'm wondering, if MZ can be of help in any way, because he has all his media connections, even Michael Harrison or somebody like that. I'm just wondering what you're doing, because you do tell a very exciting tale, interesting tale, and I would like to see that you got more of this information out there, because, I think some of the problems with Google extend way beyond just the political aspects. Some of it involves just the commercial aspect. I don't find it as useful as I used to, because if you're looking for a commercial entity in a lot of cases, it's who's ever paying in the most money gets, promoted. And that's not a useful, information source anymore.
Right, like they're completely destroying the nutraceutical and naturopathic health remedy websites that are out there. The CBD people are all under attack. The alternative health is all under attack, and Google is now promoting websites like WebMD that all they do is try to funnel people into doctors and Western medicine and these prescriptions that are patented, which is the only reason why they're being offered to the American public. And I believe they're being paid that Google's being paid by Big Pharma. I believe that WebMD is being paid by Big Pharma, and that this is the state of Google. And Google is destroying the entire industry of nutraceuticals in order to take these payouts by this Big Pharma. This is what I believe from the evidence and the articles that I've read. I haven't actually seen the deals that Google has made. I'm not privy to that, but it's clear that they are that they're destroying the entire industry. And the question is, what other industries can they destroy at a moment's notice? And as far as where I get my information from, this has been something that I've been doing for a very long time. And if you want to start, you can go on Twitter. Twitter is the best open source intelligence thing that's going on right now, but they're trying to bias it so that you can't see the people. And so what I do is I use TweetDeck. I follow the people that I want to follow, and then I create columns for the people that are pushing out good information. Because if I can follow specific people, then I'm not relying on Twitter's algorithm to feed me the information. And so I'm able to look at their stories, and then you start collecting a coherent picture of the way that the world works. And then when you find information that you think will be deleted later, archive it offline, throw it up, and make sure that you've got it. And that's what I do is I just organize information so that I have a collection, and when I want to find something, I can go back and figure out where it is. Because, as a lot of people know now, stuff that used to be easy to find yesterday is almost impossible to find today, and it's only going to get worse.
Yeah, but back to my original point, Zach. Like I said, you as a personality, your own voice, in your own words, you tell a very gripping story, and because I know plenty of people who've been on Twitter and got banned for life and all sorts of things like that. That is not going to maybe appeal to.
We're gonna work on it, Downtown Al.
And I would suggest, Michael, that you replay the show as much as possible and promote it and everything else, because this is very important what you're both doing here.
Well, everybody.
And if anybody's listening,
go ahead.
If anyone's out there listening, help me, get connected, because I'm fighting for your rights. I'm fighting for the future of your children. Help me get on these programs and connect with me on Twitter. Because I'm going to do this story until it runs its full course.
Great.
Okay. Well,
great. Thanks, Downtown Al. Here's Jay and Aptos. Real quick, Jay. Got less than 2 minutes.
There's a lot of companies. There's a lot of companies, big and small, that use Gmail and the whole G Suite, Google Docs and Google Drive, et cetera. And they're, trusting that with the intellectual property of their companies. Is Google using that data? In anti-competitive ways, or is that basically safe just to use Gmail?
Is the Pope Catholic?
I mean, here's the thing. Every single time I've drawn a line in the sand and said Google's not going to go beyond this line in the sand, I realize that they've violated it every single time. At this point, I'm undergoing what I call a Google detox, which is I minimize Gmail. Instead, I use Proton Mail for my primary address. I've gotten rid of Chrome, and now I use the Brave browser, which is an open source fork from the Chrome browser. I now use DuckDuckGo and StartPage and Dogpile for my searches. And only when I absolutely have to do I use any Google services. And what I found is that my access to information is now much better because DuckDuckGo does not filter in the same way that Google does. And it's actually improved my internet 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 improved my internet